And he put a Corvette 327 and an aluminum Super T10 4-speed in it. This is one of the nicest, executed ones I've seen. But the big thing was the subframes. These presented a unique challenge because here's one of the original ones after sandblasting, and you can see all these pinholes up through it. As it sits, I have $850 in this invested, and the parts I have listed on eBay right now will pay for that. There was a Rolls Royce that ran Dakar back in the late 70s.
I've seen pictures.
We kind of want to emulate that. That's a long ways off.
You've met this fellow at least one time before. We were here a year ago and hung out with Philip Reinhardt, my pal for a long time, McPherson College graduate. Now has a restoration shop, Mechanical Arts, in St. George, Maine. We're in St. George, yes. Maine, near where he grew up. This is a kind of a combination of two episodes you saw in the past. One is we wanted to catch up with Philip, but if you remember a year ago, we went and visited a guy named Rod Franzius and his wife Ruth Franzius. And it was in a barn in northern Maine, a Chevy powered Jaguar E-Type that he has owned since '64, had an engine swap done almost immediately, and towed his racing motorcycles from northern Maine to Daytona every year to race bike weeks. After that episode aired, Rod said, can you recommend somebody that can get that car running for me again? I'd like to drive it again. And this car hasn't been driven in how many years?
85 was when it was parked.
40 years. Oh my God. And I said, you know what? I know just the guy. So tell us about Rod, tell us about the Jag, and tell us about the restoration that you're in the process of doing here.
It's a 62, Jag E-Type, originally flat floor car. He bought it in '64 and immediately, pretty much immediately, I think within the first 6 months, took it to a place in Brooklyn called Speedway Motors, and a guy named Al Gars, who went on to be really well known in the Jaguar sphere. And he put a Corvette 327 and an aluminum Super T10 4-speed in it. Our kind of mandate from the beginning was a mechanical recommissioning. Bring the car back to roadworthy status, but we were going to leave most of the cosmetic stuff as untouched as we could. So that's kind of the mindset that we tackled this project with from the get-go. And as things always go in antique cars, you always find out a lot more once you dig into it. So there was a lot more corrosion than was originally visible on the initial inspection. Subframes off, engine out, drivetrain, rear axle, everything out, wiring out. And inspecting, the monocoque from the firewall to the back. This is considered the monocoque. Inspecting that thoroughly. We found a good bit of rust on the floor pans, inner rockers, toe board area, so we had to take care of that.
Are those pieces available?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So that was the easy part of the rust repair. But the big thing was the subframes, which bolt to the front of the monocoque. They support the engine, the front suspension. And these presented a unique challenge because the ones that Al Gars modified to accommodate the small block Chevy back in 1964 were rusted out. Here's one of the original ones after sandblasting, and you can see all these pinholes up through it. And you can see where they patched over it with angle iron, and so it had been patched up a couple times.
Wow.
There's a couple of unique challenges that these present. First is the material they're made out of. It's a thin wall, square tubing that back in the day was made from material called Reynolds 531, which was a British type of steel, very lightweight, very strong, but very brittle if you weld it, which is why these subframes were all brazed together. So you can see that. This is a mixture of factory brazing and Al Gars' work, because he took stock subframes and modified them. You can buy brand new subframes for an XKE from a few different vendors, but they aren't modified to accommodate a small block Chevy. These have been widened at the back, and you can see just how much clearance there is between the exhaust and valve covers and those upper rails.
So did you fabricate these from scratch, or are these purchased?
So we bought new subframes, and then basically using the old ones as the templates, replicated the modifications that Al Gars did in the period. Mm-hmm. The steel that they use to make them now is another British specification called T45, which is very similar to what these were made with back in the day. Again, you don't really want to weld it. And so Austin torch brazed all of these subframes just like they would have been done back in the day. So to accommodate this V8, they did a lot of things. They moved the torsion bar mounts close to the outside of the vehicle so the V8 can sit down low. They widened the upper rails. They also relocated the steering. Originally the steering come out right about here and have a straight shot to the steering rack, but they moved it over and used an intermediate shaft to kind of go out and around the engine. A lot of real clever solutions, and it was pretty well done.
So this was not a backyard job, it was well thought out.
No, and I guess the guy who did this went on to do more of these, and he kind of became known for it. Austin and I, working on this, have learned a lot more about V8 swapped E-types than we ever originally intended.
How many were there? I mean, were there a few?
I guess Al Gars did 4 of these, but I mean, there's a lot more out there, you know, done in backyards and stuff like that. Yeah. And looking online in pictures and forums, this is one of the nicest, you know, executed ones I've seen.
Yeah.
A lot of them, they would really hack up these subframes and, you know, from looking at them, kind of compromise their strength to clear the exhaust, to clear the engine. This, they did it right. And the engine sits low. A lot of them, the engine sits high and the air cleaner's sticking up out of the hood. Yeah. And so this, the engine's low, it's back, everything's kind of tucked in there nicely. The engine's been run on the engine dyno, it's broken in.
Is that a 350?
It's a 327. And
this is the engine that was in there?
They had to replace the block because it froze and cracked. So, but it is another early, mid-60s 327 block that we found. Stock 327, you know, Corvette heads that have been, they were ported and polished with bigger valves back in the day. Upon disassembly, we found that. So it's a little bit of hot rod work going on back then. And with that intake and a mild cam on 10.5 to 1 compression, it made 384 horsepower. So for a mildly warmed over 327, that's really impressive numbers. But for a car that weighs, you know, 2,300 pounds, it's really going to scoot.
So, yeah, I don't know if you remember from the episode, but Rod told me that he'd take it to Jaguar events at Lime Rock and turn in the best time of day. And all the Jaguar guys were pissed off because he's running a Chevy engine against their Jags. Well, that's cool. So be done sometime this fall, you think?
Yeah, I mean, I hope to have this thing running in the next week. And you know, I'd really like to have it done early or middle of next month.
Oh wow!
You know, that's ideal scenario.
Yeah, cool.
We'll see how it goes.
So, not surprisingly, a shop like this has got battery tenders. Philip behind that wall's got a bunch of cars in storage, and so these things are all over the shop. I mean, and it's as easy as, you know, like boom, boom, and boom, boom, and there you go. This one will charge 6-volt, 12-volt, lithium, acid cell batteries. What a deal. You can own one of these for a 20% discount. Check the description below for the link. Well, the last time we were here, I was intrigued with this Rolls-Royce project, and I think people were replying and saying this. Show us what you're planning. I know you haven't done a lot to it, but now at least you have a plan, I think, right?
Yes.
So this was facing the other direction, so I know something's been done to this.
Yeah, working for clients and being as busy as we are doesn't give us a lot of time for personal projects. But this is just one of those things we kind of pick away at on the weekends if we, you know, get an itch to do so. It's an 82 Rolls-Royce Silver Spirit. You know, the client, when I told him how much it would be to fix at an engine fire, he decided to sell it, and he asked me what I'd give him for it, and I told him 350 bucks. And so it's mine now. And that was a few years ago. I mean, I've had this thing 3 years. And so Austin and I have always kind of been fond of the GM 8.1, also known as the 496, which they put in pickup trucks, U-Haul trucks, medium duty trucks. You know, it's like commercial grade, big torquey engine, but there is some, you know, aftermarket support for them and guys who were, you know, playing with them and hopping them up. We bought an RV at an insurance auction that a tree fell on with an 8.1 with 60,000 miles.
8.1 liter.
Yeah, it's the second biggest American production V8 behind the Cadillac, the 500. in stock trim, it was 360 horsepower, 475 foot-pounds of torque. So respectable numbers, and they only go up from there with, better breathing.
Would you put turbos on it or something?
You can. And so for right now, we're going to leave it stock, because I just want to get this thing running and driving and enjoy it. And yeah, so a buddy of mine is a dealer, and he can bid on those insurance auction sites. And I told him what we were looking for. He messaged me. He said, "Hey, I found this camper insurance auction, 60,000 miles with what you're looking for." And I told him, I'll bid up to 2,500 bucks on it. Let's see what happens. And we got it for 500. So as it sits, I have 850 in this invested, and the parts I have listed on eBay right now will pay for that if they sell.
You're one of a kind, man.
We'll
I love
see.
it.
It still has the 6 3/4 liter, Rolls-Royce / Bentley V8 that they used for over 50 years. I mean, they used this from, I think it was the mid or late 50s up into the 2000s. They used this engine block, the 6 3/4 liter. Don't quote me on that, but it was a very long used engine. And so we're going to take this out, remove basically as much unnecessary stuff as we can. I mean, we'll install a painless harness in it, a universal harness.
Hot rod.
Yep. Make a dashboard for it. Run a digital gauge pack, because the 8.1s, the tuning and the computer is all basically LS-based stuff. So a lot of the electronics crosses over, but it's just a big block instead.
It's a cast iron.
Let me turn that off.
It's cast iron block.
Cast iron block, cast iron heads, big heavy engine.
And the gearbox, can you use this gearbox?
We're going to use the one out of the truck. Okay. So these had a GM Turbo 400 in them, but with a Rolls-Royce specific bell housing.
Ah, got it. Okay.
And so the truck has a 4L80, so automatic with overdrive, and we'll probably put a shift kit in it. And right now the goal is just to get it running so we can have fun with it. Make it streetable, make it reliable. But Austin and I keep tossing around the idea of making like a rally Rolls-Royce out of it eventually. There was a Rolls-Royce that ran Dakar back in the late 70s.
I've seen pictures.
And the photos of it are awesome. And so we kind of want to emulate that. That's a long ways off. That's that.
Well, you're a busy guy, and it's good to come and check on you and check on Rod's Jaguar. So
yeah,
maybe we'll stop by next year and visit you again.
Very good.
Philip, thank you.
No problem. Thank you.